morning. My name is Susan Reardon. I'm the staff hearing officer, and I call the meeting of Wednesday, February 6th to order. Today we have 2 items on our agenda, and I haven't received any requests for continuances, so we'll hear them in the order that they appear on the agenda. Under announcements and appeals, I have no announcements, and we've had no recent appeals. We'll move on to comments from members of the public pertaining to items not on this agenda. Is there anybody here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on items not on today's agenda? No, seeing no one, we'll go to the first item, which is 1035 Sima Linda Lane. If the applicant would like to come up.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Sam Maphis. I'm representing Denise Decker, who's here, the owner, the landscape architect that's been helping her change the property in many ways. So tell me how you want to start.
Sure, we'll have Suzanne do the staff
Okay,
presentation.
thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Reardon and Mr. Maphis.
Good morning.
Sam. The property is a 1.3-acre site on Sima Linda, and it is currently developed with a approximately 6,200 square foot single-family house with an attached 3-car garage and a detached 500 square foot pool cabana. The request before the staff hearing officer today is a request to add 2 5-foot vehicular gates and 1 5'6" pedestrian gate located within 10 feet of the front property line. And that is in conflict with the ordinance requirements mentioned in 2887-170, which states that fences that are within 10 feet of the front property line or within 10 feet of either side of a driveway for a distance of 20 feet back may not exceed 3.5 feet. Staff reviewed the site and its constraints and felt that there were opportunities for conforming improvements. The transportation staff did review these gates, and they feel that they could support the gates if the gates were remote actuated and opened inward onto the private property. The Single Family Design Board reviewed this application on January 7th, and they were also supportive of the design. Another concept was briefly discussed. There was not drawings prepared, that a conforming option, if located 20 feet back, which on this other blow-up you can see this is about 20 feet back right here. And then there's 10 feet is to here on this driveway, and 10 feet there, and 10 feet is somewhere about here. This is also 10 feet on this side. It's a circular driveway, so we have several locations where it would have to be pulled back. The applicant stated that if we were to do a conforming fence and gate, it would be approximately 10 to 12 feet high at the time of this SFDB meeting. With that in mind, the SFDB reviewer stated they felt that this was a preferred option out of those 2 options because they didn't want to see a taller wall. But given the size of the lot, they could either reduce the gates to 3.5 feet or relocate them to conform to the code. So staff did not feel that this is consistent with the zoning ordinance and should be denied.
Great, thank you. Now you can present any comments you'd like to present.
Yeah, thank you. As Suzanne said, we did go to the Single Family Design Review Board, and the uniqueness of this property is that it's below Sima Linda. So to pull the gates back to a point where we are conforming, and then to make it perpendicular to the actual driveway as it goes down the fall line, we would be 6 to 8 feet below the road because of the dropping topography. And in order to take the reason for this whole gate is not just for security in terms of closure, but it's for a visual aspect of people walking and cars looking down these driveways and down the gates. I'd like to show you some pictures that kind of give you that feeling. This is looking from the road down towards the front door, which on this plan you'll see through the pedestrian gate, through this gate is pretty much a line straight to the front door, which is a beautiful glass door, and it looks through the hallway down all the way to the master bedroom. So the idea for the owner is to give them some privacy, not a tall gate, but privacy from vehicles and people. This is looking up at the property stairs that are right here. And you can see there's just a car parked right here, the tires right there. So at the top of these columns, which are 42 inches, and the wall is actually 30 inches, so they do conform with the height limits of the property line in proximity to the road. But if we had a gate, as this drawing shows you, that were 5'6", then someone walking or driving would not be able to really look down these stairs or look up and see a person. So the intent is to really kind of give us some visual screening. You can see all along the top that these are conforming walls that were built previously. All we did was add pilasters that were up to 42 inches. We'd like to close those in as part of this request. This shows you that sight line looking down the pedestrian way to the front door, which is the privacy issue that we're trying to mitigate with these gates. The low profile aspect of the gates is kept at a minimum to kind of block off the pedestrian. I wanted to show you some examples of houses that also have conditions along C. Melinda that exceed some of the rules pertaining to the 42 inches and or the heights against the property line. This is further around C. Melinda that shows a new wood fence and gates that were built recently that exceed that height in proximity to the property line. Here's another gate that exists now that is essentially 3 or 4 feet back of the edge of pavement that is 5 feet plus high to the top of this. I don't even know how tall it is. And it basically takes into account a blocking or a screening of this property that's, again, similar to ours down below the street. These are all similar conditions along C. Melinda that show solid gates. In some cases, probably close to the property line. I don't know exactly where the property lines are, but these are solid gates to, again, afford some of the C. Melinda property owners some privacy looking on the streetscape. So these are just examples. Essentially, the topography is one thing that's a hardship because of how it drops. The real intent is to keep the height, as minimal as we can above the 42 inches, which is only 18 to 24 inches above the 42, just in these small arching areas. We're still keeping control all along the front, and then the landscaping. One of my pictures shows how low profile the landscaping is. It's all succulents and drought-tolerant Mediterranean plantings to match the new home. Many of the other properties along C. Melinda have, hedges that are exceeding the height of 42 inches by double that or more in existing conditions. So you can see these are right up against C. Melinda. We don't propose to do any of those. I don't think they're legal, but again, that's kind of the example of the neighborhood. So we're not trying to do anything different than the rest of the neighbors are afforded. We're just trying to create some privacy for this motor court for the front door. That's the reason for our request.
Now, the existing fence has staying the same height, so you're still going to be able to look over from the street over the...
To a degree, but it's really the angle or the sight line down. This 42-inch wall really does cut a pretty good sight line to the front door. It's these straight shots through the openings of the gate that really present the biggest problem.
3.5-foot high fence one that went here across. You're saying this is 3.5 foot?
Yeah, this is 42, right?
It pretty much blocks out gets the same effect in terms of a straight direct line in.
But a standing height is what we're trying to, or a walking height. You see one of my pictures shows just if you were a 6-foot person standing there, you could look over the top of those caps, which we're not trying to block all the way across the wall. We're just trying to take the openings that are more of where you see the privacy issue that we're trying to curb. So
this is the front. So the curb is quite a distance back. So pedestrians not going to be right at the fence. They're going to be walking along the.
Right. That's about 15 feet, I think, set back from the edge of pavement, the gates and the wall.
Okay.
So they're about 10 feet to the property line and about 4 to 5 feet from 10 feet from the edge of pavement, and then about 4 to 5 feet to where we have our wall and gate set up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 1035 C. Melinda Lane? I don't see anyone. I'll close the public hearing. We didn't receive any letters, and I don't see that there was any attached to the design review activities. So I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site yesterday and looked at the surrounding neighborhood. And I actually, in your pictures here, I reviewed. I didn't see this gate. This one way farther down. Didn't see that one either. This one. This one I did see in the course of reviewing this project, because I did review this project, and I had a lot of concerns regarding this project. In their instance, they have a pool down here, so it's their usable area, so it was necessary to be able to screen that area. In your instance, there is the living areas in the back, so this, although it's similar, the gate's pushed back. I think it was at least 20 feet from the edge of the travel right-of-way, so that cars wouldn't be in the street blocking the area. And this one I saw, this one was approved many years ago, I think in the 70s, 80s with the mod. And that's the gate, and then it curves back away from the property. So I am familiar with these two, and I didn't see the other ones. I have concerns with the location of the gate, and I find it interesting transportation staff is supportive of the gates, because I've heard from them consistently that they want them at least 20 feet from the back of the edge of the travel way. They also want them to swing inward, because if they swing outward, then that also blocks the cars being able to clear traffic ways. So as it's proposed right now, I couldn't support a modification for the overheight gates. And I understand that you can put a 3.5-foot high gate in that area. Transportation is not a discretionary action. They would be the ones who would be signing that off. But in order to, for me to approve a gate that's overheight, I would want it to be at least 20 feet back from the edge of the travel right-of-way.
That's disappointing, because we did go to Steve Foley first to make sure that traffic was okay with this position.
And
it's really only 18 inches above that.
Yeah.
So it's not exceeding anything that's unlike many of the property line conditions along the roadway, including the one that you pointed out that had the gate, or excuse me, the fence along the edge of the top of slope. It's the topography and the slope and the looking down into our entry activities that we're trying to mitigate with the small height of
Yeah, but
fence.
I don't see a 5-foot gate in these little windows here is going to do much for the privacy, because the gates in between do conform, and people still walking down the street. Driving, you're not going to notice one way or the other. You're driving, it's on a curve, you're looking down where you're going. It's the walking, and you'll still be able to look down in the area. So I don't see a 5.5-foot gate increasing privacy significantly.
Well, taking a line across here, that's the top of those columns, you can see that you still, from my vantage point of a photograph, you're still looking into that front entry door. So another 18 inches is what we're asking for in terms of relief.
Yeah, when I was out on the site yesterday, I looked to see if I could see them. These are mirrored. I couldn't see through them. Just to see down, you wouldn't see all the way into a bedroom, all the way down from the street. I don't see how the 5-foot. I can't make the findings to say that it is appropriate in that location. I could make findings, allow it to be 20 feet back from the edge of the right-of-way, which would be another 5 foot back. And so that vehicle is able to come up and pull into your driveway while they're waiting for the gates to open.
So you're saying if we pulled it 20 feet back of edge of pavement, not edge of right-of-way, because I think that's
Sorry.
edge of right-of-way.
Right. I misspoke.
Edge
Yes,
of
from the
pavement
edge
would
of the,
be
yeah.
a benefit, but edge of right-of-way would put us down the hill, and that's, I think, what we tried to present as an option to the Single-Family Design Review Board. In order to do that, then the gates way down here would have to increase in height to be a big structure, and I think out of context design-wise with, a normal-looking gate operation.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I'm
Edge of pavement would help us, certainly, because then I think we only have 4 or 5 more feet to come back, and then we might be able to achieve the compromise. But right-of-way and property line would push us way down the hill, and therefore build a giant gate structure, which I think is
Well, so it sounds
not
like
good
what I'm
architecture.
saying to you, it's still not going to work, because you're going to want it taller then the 5 foot, so pushing it back so that the car can clear.
Pushing back 20 feet, we might need an extra 6 inches or something maybe to create that privacy. It's really the openings is where people stop and look, not where the wall is, not where the planting is. That's enough of a distraction. You see the roof. It's just the owner has brought to my attention that people stand in these openings and look down and observe for minutes at a time. And she'd like to just kind of take that want or need or human nature type of aspect of walking along Sima Linda, which many people do in the neighborhood, away if she could.
But what's the difference between walking down any other street and seeing a house and turning and looking?
It's affording her some more privacy, as I think the other neighbors are trying to achieve, is what she's after and what the homeowners are after.
I can't support it as proposed, so I can either deny it or I can approve it with the conditions that the gates be set back at least 20 feet from the edge of the right-of-way.
Right-of-way or pavement?
Sorry, pavement, I keep talking.
Big difference.
I know. From the edge of the traveled way.
Okay.
So in this instance, it would be here. And, so the curb line, you extend the curb line out.
20 feet, okay.
And then again, or I could approve it that way, that the proposed gates be pushed back at least 20 feet from the edge of the travel way, and that action is appealable anyway, so you can appeal it if you go and talk to the applicant and decide that, no, we just can't live with that, we need to have them right where we're proposing. You can appeal that decision too.
So the options I have are to get this presentation or our current application denied, but you're giving me an option of if we move it another, say, 5 feet back to that 20 feet, that is an approvable option that we should look at or could look at.
Well, that
And
would
if
be,
I get
that would
denied-
be the approval.
Okay, that would be the approval. If I get denied, then I would have to appeal to the planning commission
Correct.
or something. Okay. Can you give me 2 seconds to ask the owner?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for that time.
Sure.
I think we'd like to look at that as the option for approval, which would be the 5 feet back. She is, the owner's worried, Mrs. Decker, that someone could still see down into this long hallway or down into the back of the room. So 5 foot, 5'6", would we be able to raise the gate to 5'6" or 6 foot in order to get that sight line? Could I come back and prove to you the section that's kind of the reason for that additional height, because we're pulling it back, which is rolling it down lower, so the gate is now going to be dropping lower. My worry is that if we drop that 5 feet lower, that we're going to look over the top and not give her the privacy that she's concerned about.
I could continue it to the next meeting, which is 2 weeks, and give you additional time to study it. If it sounds like what you're asking versus
I think that's
approval you're
what
not quite sure of.
I think we need to study it so we can understand what you're allowing and why we would be very accommodating to that, but we'd like to study that. So
Yeah, in terms of your answer, yes, I would like it to stay 5 feet, but you can provide additional information.
okay.
And that's fine. Okay, so then I will continue this item to the next show date, which is February 20th.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I think these are yours, excuse me.
Oh, great. Okay, so the next item is 1210 Olive Street. The applicant would like to come up to the table. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Jeff Rockwell.
Anytime you're ready.
This property is located at 1210 Olive on a 3,266 square foot lot. It's currently developed with a single-family residence, approximately 1,200 square feet. It's two-story. And the proposed project is an effort by the property owner to abate violations and permit some as-built work that is occurring in the front setback and a overheight wall. So the property owner bought the property in 2012, and I have some pictures of what the property looked like before the owner bought it. These are from Google Street View from March of 2012.
Oh, good. I didn't have mine.
And it shows some of the adjacent neighbors. If you want to thumb through those, you can.
I also have some larger pictures that will show the street.
Okay.
in
Jeff,
there.
if you let me complete my presentation, and then you'll have a chance. The property is fairly small, as you can see, and the original house was built in 1949, and it was approximately this area here. It was later expanded in 1949 to be more of a box-shaped two-story, and then sometime between 1949 and 1979, an addition was done here, at two-story levels, both upper and lower. If we flip to the next page, it might be easier to see what as-built work we're here for today. From the records, the area that we have determined at a site visit on November 28th with the building inspector was that the deck was expanded in this general area. A utility room was created right here that houses the electric meter and some other plumbing appurtenances, water heater. I think he stores his trash in there as well. They also constructed an 8x8 addition at the rear of the residence and another as-built deck expansion. This is at the upper level, which is at the same grade as the public street on Olive Street.
Okay.
The property has a sharp change in topography at the property line. So when they did this remodel to create this as-built addition, and I think the floor plan even shows it better than this one. They remodeled it so that the front door, which used to be out here on Olive Street, as you could see in those Google Street View pictures, was relocated to be in this back corner, which is why I believe this deck may have been expanded. They created, if you can give me your current pictures.
Sorry.
They created at the street a 8-foot high wall, and in this portion here, there's this utility storage area, and then they have a covered entry in this location, which is this covered entry you're seeing in the photos, and that deck is that whole length. They created this entry to give it some sort of street presence and also create privacy for what was the permitted deck, which was 12 by 18 previously. There is a storage shed that's here that's being removed. And then on the lower level, which actually sits well below street grade, and I can show you the topography here. You can see here's Olive Street. The street is at an 80-foot elevation, and then right as it leaves the street into the property, it drops 2 feet immediately, and then down to 4 within 4 feet of the front property line, or down 6 feet within 4 feet of the front property line to the 74 level. So this room is dug in and sits below street grade entirely, this as-built addition. Staff's review of this project determined that the support was mixed. Staff could support the encroachments in the 10-foot front setback for the as-built bedroom, which is approximately 110 square feet, and only a small portion of that bedroom is in the front setback because it's below the street grade and doesn't cause an impact to the public street or any neighbors. So we were supportive of that portion of the modification request. On the upper level, the utility room enclosure and yes, the utility room enclosure there at the street and the covered entry were not supported because they do impact the street, and staff felt it was out of character with the neighborhood. Sorry, parched. We don't support the deck expansion, and we discuss with the property owner that we would support something similar to what's occurring at the neighbor at 1208. They have a pedestrian bridge that takes them from the public right-of-way back to their front door. So we would support a pedestrian bridge from the right-of-way back to the permitted deck to allow access to what is now their new front door at the side of the building back here. So staff is recommending partial support of the modification to approve the bedroom and not approve the utility room, reduce the deck expansion to just a bridge, and the second modification request is for the overheight wall. When we have this significant drop at the property line, building and safety would require along that front property line at the back of the sidewalk a minimum guardrail of 42 inches for safety reasons, since it does have such a sharp drop. Staff would support the existing wall being reduced down to 3.5 feet. Because of the retaining wall that is actually supporting the public street improvements at the property line, in combination with the guardrail, would be over the 3.5 feet. It would be ranging from probably 5 to 8 feet tall, based on the existing topography. The modification would still be required, so staff could support a 3.5 foot guardrail atop the retaining wall of the property line. The Single Family Design Board did review this property. They reviewed it back in December, and they were supportive of all the as-built improvements. So I just wanted to let you know that information. Staff forwarded you the letters that were received by the SFDB. There were 4 letters in support and 1 letter with concerns from Paula Westbury. And then we were also handed a email this morning from the neighbor at 1208 who has some concerns about drainage onto her property.
Now, the staff report says that this project's going to address the violations in the ZIR, and then there's 2 enforcement cases, one of which is this drainage.
It was withdrawn.
That enforcement case was withdrawn?
Correct.
Okay, so is drainage addressed with this project?
Building and safety does have requirements when they issue permits to not allow or not drain your water onto your neighbor's property, so they would be looking at the drainage issue. I will forward this letter to the enforcement officer as a second complaint.
Okay. And then the existing deck,
Yes.
12 by
The 12 by 18.
18 deck, what was surrounding it? In your research, did you see any type of railing that was?
It was not clear on anything that I saw with the deck. The deck was clearly approved. when you looked at the site plan on the archives, which I have, the site plan shows it at 10 feet from the property line, but when you go to the actual structural drawing for the deck, here's the new deck here. The structural drawing is right here. You can see here's the bump out for where the kitchen currently is. And it extends beyond with the posts, so that deck is actually shifted forward.
That's fine.
Yeah, so we allowed
is
them
this
to
the
have it
deck
at
here?
4 feet
So
from the
is
property
it-
line.
This is the deck here,
Yes, so I guess it was a low railing.
so like 3.5.
If you go to the elevations on the proposed
real one?
plans, I have drawn in where the 10-foot setback occurs. So you can see it's only the new wall. Here's the setback line. Here's with the deck. So the fencing that's around the deck stops at the 10-foot setback line. It's the newly created wall, that new walled
gotcha.
entry
Okay.
that is returning down into the setback away from the property line.
Okay. All right, those are my questions for now. Thank you. You've already stated your name. Would you like to state your name for the record?
Catherine Dunbar.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add? Or you want to make your presentation?
Sure. When I first initially bought the house, I came down to the city and got a zoning report, and there were zoning violations, of which, once I closed the property, it was a bank sale. It took about 7-8 months. And so I got the zoning violations, and on our plans, as submitted, we were to take out the washer and dryer, which was this, basically. There's a fence that was here, and that's been here for a long time. It wasn't that we created a new wall. There was this barrier there for a long time. And so we took that out. And when we were going down the line and doing this building, we decided, okay, well, let's just stucco this thing because that stuff looks ancient. We didn't take it down. We just put a coat of stucco over it. And you have the pictures there, but I have a couple of little bit better ones. This is looking down the street. So that's the utility room that's in discussion right here. And that's been there, I mean, if the building and safety would say it's been there for time immemorial, that little room there. This, by having this, it affords the only privacy on the property because you have apartment buildings. I have every viewpoint looking straight onto the property because it's a sunken lot. It's one of those pit lots, they call it. So no matter where you are in the house, it's looking right into the house, every window. It's a small lot, so the actual apartment buildings, when you're there, they're sitting like this. So the only, the decision was, and I thought it was okay, was that this was where the entry was going to go. The other old door opened right onto the sidewalk. And it's all the high school kids coming by and you look right into the guts of the house. So I just thought that this was the obvious thing to do. And it does afford them this, it's not a large amount of privacy, but it is something to put some chairs and a porch on so they can have some privacy. Because basically the interior of the house is going to be, blinds and shades. Otherwise, you're looking right in the window of other people. So that was what I thought was okay. I mean, I really didn't think, I wasn't trying to maneuver around anything. We just thought, well, this will be really, really nice. I mean, we have full neighbor support. I mean, everybody loves it. I could get more support letters too, but I only sent them out to the immediate neighbors. Also, this is looking down the sight line from the street. Looking down from 1208 towards 1210, the house. And you can see how close that these houses are built onto the lot. This is across the street. That whole side of the street is built. And this is looking at the house also, which is there. From the corner all the way to the next corner is all on the sidewalk. So, I really didn't even think that what I was doing was something that shouldn't be done. And I think, everybody says it's a vast improvement. The Architectural Review Board says it's a vast improvement. So I think that's the issue here. Some of the other smaller issues, we didn't expand any deck. All that deck was there. That deck's been there forever, coming out to the street. And even here, the 1981 from the county, it shows that went right out to the street. we didn't add this. This is what their assessment. And so they said, I guess on the plans it was this big, but in reality it went to the street. And I think,
Well, this is the house line right here, right?
That little pop out. So it was in line with the.
So it's in line with the house.
I think that any neighbor, if we wanted to bring them in, would give us an idea of how long that's been there. There are a couple, elderly people, and I'm sure that they could give us a timeline, but it's been there for a long time. I mean, the underneath, the skirting of that is old.
Now, do you have any pictures of the understory area that's also part of the mod? The bedroom addition below?
I think I have some that will show it. There should be, there's some that show the side of the house. Here's one. Here's a good
It's
one.
in,
This is looking to where that bedroom is. Here's the upper part of the deck, and the bedroom's right there.
yeah, I guess just in this
Yeah,
area.
you see it there, yeah.
Because of the topography of the lot, I think it would be kind of difficult because of the existing shed to get a vantage point looking directly at that north elevation of that addition.
Okay, well, that was your... Did you have any comments?
I
on
did
that?
have one other to add.
Okay, sure.
I understand what Suzanne's saying. I understand, that what I did probably wasn't the proper thing to do without, a full consensus beforehand. But there's one other really large problem on this property. It's known as had FEMA lawsuits. It's a major flooding lot because all the water comes off the street because the city refuses to put in a bigger intake. So we went in with Terra Construction and put in a intake 30 feet by 3 feet right under a pipe that the city said was theirs, but then it wasn't theirs, and the county said it was theirs. It's an abandoned one, but it's full drainage. It's 6 feet high under there. So we tapped into that, an 18-inch hole, to solve that flooding problem. And at 1208, she would know if she came up here and she talked to Tierra, or even to Dennis or the guy that came out and inspected that, this is like the best way to solve this problem, because everything that rolls over from the street rolls down into our yard. And then also, the reason I'm bringing this up is because the street scene that you see, the water builds up on the street, and they have like this, on that fence, there's a 2-foot band of stucco that goes all the way down to the main house. It'll show it on the fence side. And was to keep flooding out of the back of the house. Here. This is stucco right in here. You see it was salt. Went all the way to the house. Because what happens, they sandbag over here to try to keep the water out of going in the hole. Happens every big flood. And then all the water pours down into their backyard. At least this way, it goes down a driveway and has some control of the flood. But this was always a barrier to keep that water out. Because you have a 6-foot, 7-foot drop right off the sidewalk. Like 3 feet before you hit any structure. And down there's all the plumbing and the vents and all this. I mean, it ain't pretty. And then you have the big old stone wall foundation. So that water's going to go into there. And the whole thing about this house was all that water was pouring into the back of the house. So we solved that problem by also, sealing these decks here. We sealed those because it was wood and all that water just keeps going. And they have these major problems with water going into the back of the house. And then the whole backyard floods and it goes up 5 feet.
Well, this solution, if it was to be extended, staff's recommending could be provided in that scenario also.
Could be. But then then you've got a bridge and you have other things to deal with.
Okay. I'd like to open the public hearing. There's no one here. And I did receive the letters you mentioned you received from the ABR, the petitions of support, and Ms. Paula Westbury's. And then in regards to the drainage, it's not really under my purview. It is something building and safety. It will be worked on during plan check process. But in terms of the modifications before me, it's these types of modifications. It's not in my purview. So I'll close the public hearing. I did go out to the site yesterday and looked at the areas. I couldn't get a look back where I was questioning if you had pictures of, but I agree with staff's recommendations in regards to it's not visible from the public street. and sunken below grade, and that is could be considered an appropriate improvement. A lot of times when people are requesting modifications of the front yard setback, it's more of a community, a neighborhood type issue versus just the properties, the properties adjacent to each other, whereas an interior setback modification, you're looking at both properties. The front setback is part of the public setting, and more modifications of the front setback are looked at more closely than the interior setbacks. So in regards to the front setbacks, the changes we're talking about are additions and alterations to the front facade, so like the change of the door, the window to the door. In that instance, that is an appropriate improvement. That's
The window to the door, can you, just keep me
the
posted
window.
on which one, I'm not
Okay.
sure what window to the door you're talking about. Was it the front of the house?
Yes.
Okay.
So this door, window, where's the, this one? No, the Google one here is.
Yeah.
So the original situation where there's a front door and there's a window. And now the current situation is that the window appears to still be there, but
Yeah, the same
the
window.
door was filled in, and so actually I guess it's now a
Just a niche.
indent.
We were going to put something there, yeah.
so that change is an appropriate improvement. I have concerns with this fence and utility use, trash storage, and what in the front setback. I don't know that I've ever found that type of thing on the front property line as being consistent with the zoning ordinance. So I have concerns regarding the supportability of the modification and then the associated deck with it. I could support a higher fence at the front building facade in this area. This area, sorry.
Yeah, that's 8 to 10
I was
feet
like, with the
down.
thing. So the existing house, this is the existing house here,
Yes.
and here's the deck. So a higher fence in this area to give you some privacy for your outdoor living space, but I can't support the fence, the 8-foot high fence right on the property line, and I can't support this kind of use in the front setback.
Okay.
Like I said, the additions under the understory area, that is fine, but I'd have to go with a modified staff recommendation in regards to the wall. The deck area is the same, but so the wall I could support.
Is that a 6-foot back dimension you're talking about here?
What's your scale? 1/4?
It's 4. It's 4.5.
Yeah, so it would be in line with the face. So, yeah, just over the 4 foot. So, and not up to 8 feet, 6 feet at this front base of the building.
So, is there any way we could just move it to 7? I mean, we'll rip the whole thing out. It's a disaster. Number one, this is a total disaster. Because that thing's made really well. Everything was aesthetically done. I'm a little shocked. But anyways, so then we have this whole problem with the water falling down into the backyard. So I also need to know that this can remain to be not a hollow, vacuous gap looking into the back of the house and everything. I mean, it's if you take a site visit out there and you look down there, it's not a pretty sight. It's old stone walls, old beams. You know, there's no way to cover that up unless I put trees in there and then start, you know, moving that out with a big green wall. Then that can upset the structure when the roots, you know, when the roots go in. So, you know, I'll rip all this up. I mean, it's killing me, but I'll do it. But I'd like to at least get 7 feet so we can at least have an entry door get in there so they have the privacy. And if you have a door that's sticking up above the wall, I think that's not going to look good.
What are you talking about, 7 feet? 7 feet back, 7 feet
No,
high,
height,
7
height,
feet?
sorry, height. So basically what I'm understanding you're saying is we have to take all this out and then have the wall back where this is.
Right.
Okay? I'm asking you, can we keep this door here? Because that's for 4.5 feet or 5 feet, whatever it is. And continue the wall straight out from there. Like, here's your door, right?
Right.
And you want me to put the wall right here.
Right.
Which, okay, you don't have any choice in the matter, so, okay, we can do that. So what I'm asking, can we keep this at 7 feet so at least it'll have some continuity going across as opposed to this wall like this, or wall coming here, then door sticking up?
Sure.
If we can just give it some aesthetic. So it
7
doesn't,
foot, 7 foot high, flush with building. And like you heard me say with the previous project, my action is appealable to the Planning Commission, and there's 7 of them up there. And so I can approve it with these conditions, and you
but
can...
it's all, you know, it gets down to just be cost.
Yeah.
You know, it's already cost me about $6,000-7,000 to get to this point. So if it's going to cost me $6,000 or $7,000 to get to the next point, I may as well, because that's about what it'll cost, probably $6,000 to $8,000 to move this thing. So, you know, why go to the planning? I mean, how much does it cost to go to the planning commission? We can talk to Suzanne about
Yeah,
that.
afterwards, we can take an action here today, and then you can explore all your options. You have 10 days.
A couple questions. So, is
Can you
this
speak into the microphone?
sorry. This deck that's across here, then, this whole area is approved?
No. No, this needs to be removed. And then,
You can't remove the deck part of it, though, and yet I think there needs to be another site visit or something. You can't just take this out and make this hole falling
Okay.
down behind the house. We can't do that.
okay,
If we can-
so what my understanding, okay, so then if, with the condition that the fence be pulled back here, would you be proposing an additional guardrail around here? Or would this be the new dam for your rain, for your water?
No, I would be proposing that this remains. You know, because they have a big problem at the house at 1208. You know, they have the little bridge going out. They have that. Well, if you look at that, if somebody goes over there and looks at that, the floods go down into
Right
there.
straight down there.
And I can get the tenants that are in there having to swim out of it before during the. So they said that's a terrible design.
Okay.
And so try to keep this completely sealed, and that's what we did. We used all the special coating and everything to keep the water out of here. You know?
Okay, I would be willing to have the deck remain there, if, put some planters or something.
Sure.
Put some,
Some big pots.
I mean, that'll tone down the wall a little bit. That's a good idea.
This water heater, though, is going to have to go below the step, and that's going to be in the front yard. Except that. Is that something?
Well, no,
that's approvable?
I can deal with that. That's not that big of a deal. That's not.
Where are you going to put it?
Just down below on the porch, on the concrete, because the plumbing's right underneath it. There's place.
Is it going to be
Within the
that
10
side?
foot setback.
Thank you.
I can put it 10 feet now.
okay, so what we've modified this is that the fence will be flush with the building, 7 foot maximum height. The deck can remain with planters or pots or something. It doesn't have to be a built-in planter because that would have associated water problems, potentially planters or pots. And then this utility rooms needs to be removed.
basically all that was really covering. There's no trash kept in there. I mean, there's a trash can in there. We have a trash pull-out thing over here we made for the side of the house because this is, you can't get a trash can in there. What this really did, and too bad I didn't bring the photo, is it's all the electrical stuff coming down. It's all the piping. It's all this. It's going to look horrific when it comes down. And it is all code, but it's going to look horrific when all this comes down. So, you know, maybe I can come back here. Maybe we can just put something to cover that mess up. You know, it's all that old kind of piping. And do we have that when I had the utility door open?
No, you didn't have it. A picture of that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So that's
What I'll
basically
put-
all that
yeah,
was
what I'll put-
covering.
Can it be relocated? Or can it?
No, not all the electric,
What
yeah,
was
it's
the building
The
inspector saying?
electrical panel is there. There are some chases from plumbing and utilities going up
Which
the
goes
side.
through the roof there. It's the only place it can really go.
And
Your
when
venting.
I was out there with Brian Gronenbeck, he had some concerns that the location of the utilities may or may not meet building code, that he needed to really, the property owner needed to consult with the plan checkers to verify it was going to meet code.
And if it doesn't meet code, what does that mean?
It may have meant redesign of that area. So I had asked the applicant and the property owner to discuss that with Building and Safety. I don't know how extensive their conversations with Building and Safety were for the plan checkers. But there still remains the concern by the inspector that the utilities in this area may not have adequate separation to meet code.
That was some conduit. Yeah, we'll get through that.
Right.
That's not the big issue, but you know, it is kind of unsightly. It's an old house, and you know, some of that pipe is just where that pipe goes to penetrate the roof for the vents.
Well, what if I put a condition that if the utilities are to remain there, if something to the effect that if they have to stay there, appropriate screening would be worked on with staff and SFDB.
I mean, I think there's an easy solution
Yeah.
to it. It's
Because the idea is just screening. If they truly can't be relocated, they need to stay there. Then yes, I don't want.
You want them screened in a minimum size
Yeah.
enclosure.
Yeah, some proper. Yeah.
Could you maybe continue it and come back with your solutions if you don't want it minimum size?
well, I'll ask. There's two questions I have left. With this. That does include that.
Yeah.
The Planning Commission.
Uh-huh.
Can you just give me a quick rundown on like when the dates are, or how long that process is, or anything? Is that in more
That would be
months?
something with Suzanne work on afterward. They have the schedule because there's noticing report preparation and that kind of stuff, and I don't know what their agendas are looking like.
And if I do what we're recommending, I'm okay.
What do you mean?
If I do the 7 foot here and do what we're discussing,
If you comply with the conditions, then you've gotten your modification.
okay.
It would need to be followed up with design review because you need to return to design review anyways after this action today. Whether if it was as you proposed or not, because they can't give approval before the modifications are approved.
You understand?
Okay. So what?
I wanted to clarify. Is this where you're saying the trash is stored right now?
Well, that's where we would like to put it. I mean, there's no other place to put it, especially if we take this all out. You know, there's a trash holder right here by the front door. You know, that's inside, which is.
There's a face-on view of this.
I think there's a direct shot of the inside of the deck. Here.
It's not.
Here.
This is before.
Here, the ones that I brought in is right here. You know, that was the one I would figure anybody would use to put their trash.
So where's
Plenty
this
big
on
in
your
it.
plan?
Right here.
Oh,
Here's
but that's
the door
gonna be
that's
gone
set
now.
back in, and
Oh,
here's
this is the back of the door. We're looking like this.
correct. That's where you're
Okay.
looking at. You're looking. This is
Okay.
towards the
But
street.
This is
That's
going
the street.
away.
The alcove is going away.
Correct. I mean, according to you, you want me
Right.
to take that out.
Well, and this is
Oh, if I had, I don't know if I have a shot of that actually. Sorry, I didn't know what that was. That just was always like that. I just thought.
They have a trash can.
it would have to
I
be
didn't do
screened.
anything to
Yeah.
it. So they've been keeping them in here. they're a little hard to get in and out of there, but I mean, they do go in there. So, but I always thought that somebody would put them there. So,
Well, you have to work on a location with staff on a location for it to be put.
well,
And if it...
my
if
idea
it-
is when you pull them out of here, you put them there for the trash pickup. I mean, you have to put your cans out for trash
Correct.
pickup, and they do pick up from that spot. So that's wheeling them about,
So then
15
they'd maybe
meters.
be tucked in this area, and then they'd be wheeled out for them to take.
well, they would, they just take them and put them right there. Or they were taking them out and putting them.
Would you put your trash next to your front door?
Not ideal. But
Okay,
I
so
don't
with
think
those changes, those addition of conditions, so the first condition they were proposing, the as-built deck expansion located in the front setback shall be reduced to the minimum width necessary to allow pedestrian access within 4 feet of the front property line. The as-built deck.
it's going to be a mess.
Well, this is, I'm going to modify condition 1, because this is the one that the decking can remain, but I want pots put on top of it, because the fence does need to be pushed
That's
back.
fine.
Okay, the as-built site wall at the front property line shall be replaced. That one is the one that's going to be replaced with, it needs to be flush with the building, and maximum 7 feet high.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep the door.
Right. Then the third condition that's proposed by staff, that still is appropriate. The gates need to swing in, or the doors need to swing in. The attached storage shed located in the front setback shall be demolished. That's still appropriate, and number 5 is still appropriate. So with those revised conditions,
I have one other
yeah.
request. The reason we came up with this idea to keep the doorway like that was when they come in, there's no on-street, off-street parking. So, they have to kind of hope they can park close. And then when they're bringing groceries and everything in that, and opening the door and getting in that way, that they would have some kind of cover, rain cover. So, they're not getting wet. Is there any way that when we move this back, we could implement something when they're standing outside the door to maybe go over a little bit or something, even a foot?
It would have to be pushed back into the deck area.
From this spot, so that we wouldn't have any front, there'd be nothing covering the front of the...
Well, you can do your little indent here.
Yeah, I don't want to tear, that's just, I guess it'd be way too much work. Yeah, so there'll just be a straight up wall with not even a little portico or anything.
And
Susie, before you finalize your action, you were going to modify my first condition to say the deck could remain, but you wanted potted plants or a planter. Do you want to further clarify this to be shown on a site plan or a landscape plan that the SFDB reviews,
yeah, I can add that.
just so that they stay there?
Yeah, the idea is that it's not used for a deck, but it provides some protection from the drainage and then an access way, but not that it be part of the deck area.
Okay, can I throw one more at you?
Yeah.
You see where the house is? This is the house line. This line right here. Is there any way that, this is probably a foot, that we could keep that line here and just we have a little bit of indentation there? Instead of just a flat wall? And I think the ABR would be in favor of that because at least it's giving it some kind of relief.
I don't understand what you're saying because
This is where the house ends.
Right.
It comes in, it jumps in here a little bit. What I was saying is can we, instead of just creating, right here, instead of just creating that, I'm just trying to get some architectural element. If we just came up here with the wall.
You can get it pushed back this way. You can
Okay,
get
but
the
that
relief.
means this, and then you're ripping up the deck and everything. Okay. I was just trying to get some element, architectural element there. And I'm not trying to push out. It doesn't do me any good to get one more foot, but it would maybe make it look a little bit better without having to tear this whole thing out. Which is just coming like this. Because you want this whole part of the house exposed. I don't know. I have to look at that.
Okay. So the second finding will be modified too because it talks about the existing fence being replaced with a guardrail, but it needs to reflect the fact that it's going to be pushed back flush to the house and it could be at 7 feet.
You need to think about this. Do you want to put a guardrail on that?
There's no guardrail because it's a solid. We're not worried about it because it's solid.
Right.
I just want to keep the membrane completely solid so that,
Right.
that's fine with me. They're not going to fall anywhere.
Yeah, right. So the guardrail's not necessary.
Guardrail's
so that's
not
why I was
necessary.
It's a guardrail right there.
So the guardrail starts right here. I guess
And that's-
so.
Until he gets to the main wall of the deck, at the deck.
perfect.
Yeah, the
because-
guardrail starts right there.
The city's guardrail is here, and then there's a wood fence behind it. It's slightly taller than the city-approved guardrail.
And we have a railing that goes all the way to the guardrail, so there's no way anybody can fall in this corner.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
we'll just leave
guardrail's
that out
fine.
there. I mean, we're not going to push that down. We got to keep that corner.
Yeah, this
See that
guardrail
fence
here.
right there.
Yeah.
It goes all the way. It goes all the way to that other guardrail.
Right. That's
Okay.
and that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So I approved the project as altered today, making the findings in the staff report as we discussed that they've been altered, and subject to the conditions of approval as we revised them today. My action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. They also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if that was to occur, Suzanne would contact you.
Okay.
Okay? All right, thanks. I adjourn the meeting.
I've been to Spain, to Tokyo, to Africa, and even to Ohio. I never tried to make the news. I'm just a woman who sings the blues. I take my loving everywhere. I come back and honey, they still care. I got one love ahead, one love behind, one in my arms and one on my mind. One thing, baby, I never made my move too soon. One thing, baby, I never made my move too soon.